Hey everyone, Spooky Sparrow here. Happy Halloween! Welcome back to the Adventurers Sandbox, a fantasy map that we are very slowly filling with all manner of things. Today's build will take place on almost the very edge of the map, on the outskirts where only the bravest adventurers dare set foot. The witch's hut will sit on the edge of a swamp, her garden sprawling out on the other side of her wooden home, and the interior will be fully furnished with no blueprints, so make sure you stick around to see the finished product and listen to all of the lore behind this build. Also important to note, this was built for a competition in the Gunters Gaming Discord. If you'd like to hang out there and join any of the building challenges, make sure to check out the link in the description below. Do also check out his video where all of the competition builds are featured, and remember to vote for your favorite there. That link will also be in the description and on your screen right now. So as you can probably tell, we're setting up the exterior of the hut before doing any detail work. Log wall, palm thatch roof, wooden support beams around the patio, and plenty of wooden doors and windows all around. Right now, of course, it's not looking too rickety or rundown, but we'll get there as the build progresses. I did draw this basic structure out on paper before starting the build, so this was the easy part. Also made good use of the roof trick, as you may have seen earlier. 2 different roof layers, one for the outside and the other for the interior beams. The new Oceania pieces got a lot of love here as well, with that palm thatch roof, which thankfully is recolorable, so I could make it a more swampy color, as well as the driftwood fences, which I also recolored to a murky green wood tone to really tie in the swamp idea. And then using the grid floor pieces, getting the perimeter done was incredibly quick. The windows were actually a bit tricky for me because I like things to be in line with each other, neat and organized, but with the windows I wanted to have staggered heights, and so I had to really watch where I was placing them. Also used a few different types of windows, such as these tall ones, the circular one, and a tiny one that seemed to fit together style-wise. Definitely helped make the windows feel a bit more random. Inside, I thought a fireplace would be neat, so I used pretty much the same technique as for the fireplace in the tavern build, just the fire pits with plenty of dry stone panels around. The dry stone contrasted very nicely against the painted temple stone floor that is everywhere else in the hut. It's really not a big hut, only 12 meters by 8 meters, so 3 wall pieces by 2 wall pieces. Still took about 10 hours to complete this because of the small detail work on the inside, which I am so excited to show you any second now. Here we are, the first custom piece for the interior. Pretty much all of the furniture in here, the bookshelves, any closets, tables, etc., used the Indonesian stained timber pieces because they allow you to have one color peeking through another, and I thought that worked well for the rotting or slightly older look I was going for. The books are actually the rectangular and square signs from the Australia pack. Once I had a few set up and recolored, it was super easy to copy them over onto the other shelves. And just like that, it was time to add a magic mirror to the gap between the bookshelves. I thought the emissive panel worked well because of its reflective texture, but also the fact that you can recolor the glow coming from it. So I made it glow this slight reddish purple color to make it seem more magical. Many of the items in here ended up being this dark burgundy and maroon shade. I just thought it fit the Halloween vibe well. Outlined the mirror with conservation slats, and then it was time to start on other witchy things, like this broom closet. No witch is complete without her method of transportation, of course. This is just a simple stained pole, the Oceania rope pieces, and the grassland pole copied probably 100 times to create the straw of the broom. Kind of looked like spaghetti while I was working on it, not gonna lie, but I think it worked out well in the end. I will also say that this build challenged me to find very weird pieces to make my vision come to life. Never thought I'd be making a witch's broom from scratch in Planetzooo. Every great witch also needs a method of divination and, of course, a spellbook, so this area I decided to fill with a table draped with lots of cloth to make it seem more mysterious, atop which these magical items would sit. The painted flower pot feet worked amazingly as a stand for the crystal ball, while the spellbook I created out of 2 half-meter screens, some more of the rectangular signs, and a comma font piece for the little bookmark at the bottom. Here's a closer look at the spellbook's contents for those of you who are curious. This area is very instrumental to the witch's story. On top of this simple table sit an urn, a photo, and a single black candle. I won't spoil the story just yet, but the witch's entire descent into madness centers around the items on this table. Such a small detail, but so important. She also, of course, needs a cauldron. This was the single most difficult thing to build and really tested my knowledge of pieces in planetzooo. To start, I used a sphere, then a bunch of the half spheres to create the lip at the top. The feet of the cauldron I had to get very creative with, so they're actually made out of the bronze otter statues, and it's just the tail peeking up out of the floor. Pretty proud of that one. The ears are a few of the O font shapes stacked on top of each other to make them thicker. And finally, the contents of the cauldron itself is just the same half sphere recolored to green with the Arctic bauble lights the same color. We also obviously need ingredients for our potions, so these shelves will hold a host of random objects that I scoured the construction tab for. Lots of bowls and jars and bottles of things, but also many plants and vegetables, some recolored eggs, rope pieces, and my new potion favorite, the winter berries from the Arctic pack, came in super handy for this section of the hut. I also figured this witch may be dabbling in some dark arts, seeing as she is kind of going mad. So these cages were supposed to hold some captive animals, but because of the planetzooo hitboxes, I couldn't make that happen. But we'll just pretend that these cages hold some manner of wild animals, and the table next to them will show some of the things she uses from her sacrifices in her potion making. So there is a small knife or dagger, some small bones and maybe rib pieces, hunks of red meat, as well as some blood smeared all over the table and the floor. One final detail for the potion ingredients, these hanging discs and pillars of dried herbs. The upper portion of the hut was feeling a bit empty, but these elements hanging from the ceiling beams made a big difference. And just like that, the interior was complete. So it was time to grunge up the exterior with lots of vines and strangler fig roots to make it seem like the swamp was slowly taking over the hut. I don't use these pieces often because honestly they kind of annoy me, but it tied everything together, so, well, I just had to. Along the side of the hut, I placed some ivy, seeing as this will be the wall facing the water, so lots of moisture for it to grow in. You can also see some hanging planters with pitcher plants in them. I thought that was a fun, spooky plant for Halloween. Then I went through the nature tab and found some more plants that I thought were spooky looking, such as this corpse flower. Also put down as many pumpkins and candles as possible for maximum Halloween vibes. Also couldn't miss out on making the roof look overgrown as well, and these tropical panels sunk into the roof worked amazingly for that. With the hut complete, I could move it off the grid and position it exactly where I wanted it before starting my terrain work. I imagined the murky waters of the swamp coming right up under that patio, and I wanted it this greenish brown color, so the crocodiles would have an easy time hiding in it. Some mossy overgrown rocks around the edges, and then plenty of pebbles within, plus the dark colored underwater plants all over, and reeds all around the edges to contain the scene a little better. I also put down a few landmark trees, but you'll see those in the cinematics at the end. Finally, it was time for the garden. These garden beds were just built with conservation slats and mulch, which I've done before in a different video, but building a well was brand new to me. I used these twilight turret pieces plus the Asian water shrine to make it look like there was water within, some wooden posts, and got creative with this light bracket at the end as a way of lowering and raising the bucket. Gave it a palm thatch roof to match the hut, and there it was. Filling the garden beds was such a treat. I tried to make them as spooky as possible with the pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns and vines coming up all over the place. Some other plants I thought worked well here were the lords and ladies plants, the alpine sea holly, and the corpse flower once more. Not necessarily spooky on their own, but maybe something a witch would use in her potions. With a simple fence of portcullis pieces made, just needed to light it up with some lanterns, some of which have unfortunately fallen off their posts. And the last portion of the witch's grounds, a peaceful place near the Weeping Willow. Why is it here? Well, you may be about to find out. deep in the forest, next to a crocodile-infested swamp, lies a rickety wooden house. It wasn't always this way, the trees remember. Once upon a time, the woods teemed with life and the waters sparkled in the sun's light. That was before the witch. Within her hut lie clues to her descent into the dark arts, forbidden potion ingredients, a spellbook, the picture of a former lover. The cauldron bubbles and the fire roars as she works, accompanied only by her familiar. She toils night and day, the garden and swamp outside, forgotten. Its tenants, a tortoise, porcupine, and 2 crocodiles, are the lucky ones. Adventurers come to slay her, and now forever bound to the swamps. They do not dare to think what happened to the others. Still, a touch of her humanity remains. A weeping willow, candlelight, a scene set for 2. She is heartbroken. She's hurting. But most of all, she's lonely. And what can one do when they are craving the presence of one specific person? For now she works, she crafts, she brews, she waits for the black candle next to his portrait to burn. Then, and only then, she may be able to bring him back from the dead.